Quotations from myself, segment 92, quotation number 1067. It must be considered a great historical mystery that the Bible, the unquestionably unique book of the truly distinct, obscure and insignificant, even at the time of their brief local flourishing, people of the ancient Israel, became the foundation of Western civilization, the great code in which allegedly everything is contained in its archetypal form, and through which it is claimed all could be explained, at least as far as this particular civilization is concerned. And it is also no less of a cultural paradox to have this idiosyncratic creation of a tiny Semitic tribe continuously teetering through the history on the brink of disappearance, being appropriated of its own by the vast masses of just emerging European barbarians destined to conquer the earth. For how one can dismiss the irreconcilable differences between the resignation and humility of a small defeated people faced with their virtual extinction, the people who found in love and forgiveness and the rewards of kingdom of heaven their last refuge on one side, and the fierce and brutal, full of vitality and strength, optimistically aggressive, adventurous and daring Frankish, German, and Scandinavian tribes on the other. And this glaring incompatibility of the foundation of the Western civilization in its edifice, between its Middle Eastern, fading away originators and emerging European inheritors, have created ever-present contradiction in its very core. And this seemingly irreconcilable incompatibility, I believe, is the main cause of continuous turmoil this civilization has been in for the past 2,000 years. For while it adopted and ostensibly proclaimed the Prince of Peace as its one and only God, in reality the European barbarians were never capable to reconcile him with their warlike nature, and had thus condemned themselves to lead the schizophrenic existence in perpetuity. On the other hand, a religious person can probably see in all this the God designed to temper the reckless fierceness of the newly emerging victorious and overconfident power with the very wisdom of the old and defeated one, the kind of meeting of Attila the Hun and Ecclesiastes, and thus save the world from total devastation. But for those of us lacking in faith, this whole thing appeared to be just another example of the essential insanity of human existence. 1068. As one goes through life trying to get what one wants from it, the truth of the biblical saying, "For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the world, the whole world, and lose his own soul?" became more and more apparent. And so the biggest trick of all in life shall forever remain to be able to gain what is important for one's satisfaction without losing what is essential for the peace of one's conscience. 1069. No matter how self-assured and self-reliant one might be, there is always this nagging feeling of uncertainty present inside everyone, suggesting ever so subtly that perhaps our good fortunes are not entirely of our own making, and that we should be thankful to something else, be it a God or luck for it. Taking in a broader public context, this private tendency manifests itself most explicitly in the celebration of Thanksgiving, the main feature of which are shared by all cultures. For though it is mainly the man's labor which produces all that bounty of nature, yet it always seems somewhat undeserved and thus demands some expression of gratitude. Needless to say, the blame for our misfortunes, both personal and collective, is almost universally laid at somebody else's feet as well. 1070. Coming to the end of one's life, the answer to this most important of all of them questions, whether it should be considered a success or pronounced a failure, depends largely on the relative degree of freedom, as opposed to the absence of it. One had to pursue throughout his life what one would, given a choice, prefer above anything else, and not the accumulation of riches and attainment of prominence, unless, of course, these were one's primarily goals in life to begin with. But, of course, all will agree that the luckiest ones are those who didn't have to sacrifice one thing for the sake of another, and got their fame and fortune while living in a manner they would have anyway, regardless of outcome. 1071. Why are we so much fascinated by the evil, so much interested in all its ugly and revolting aspects, its seemingly infinite forms and manifestations, and on the other hand, are so indifferent, so impervious, so lukewarm toward the good? Is it not because our main preoccupation in life is the survival and not the attainment as much as possible what we consider good, as some philosopher's school claimed? And since it is the evil that threatens our well-being, it is quite natural to pay such a disproportionate amount of attention to it, and thus to learn, albeit most intuitively, how to protect ourselves from it. 1072. The game, or any other collective activity, can only last long enough to give all the participants the satisfaction of exercising their skill and abilities, if they are all more or less equal as far as the skills and abilities are concerned. But if one of the players is visibly superior to the rest, there are only two possible outcomes. Either this person has to leave to let everybody else to enjoy himself, or the game is over very quickly. For nobody, if he can help it, will agree to remain in a state of obvious inferiority for a long time. The conversation or discussion in which several people take part is also a kind of a game, an intellectual one, and therefore falls under the same rules. That is, it can only go on providing mutual enjoyment for all present if they are more or less equally informed on the subject at hand. And none is substantially better in putting this idea across than the other in the group. But if one of them knows much more than the rest about this or that particular topic under the discussion, and in addition possesses superior discursive abilities, it is better for all concerned that such a person voluntarily withdraw himself, not just in spirit, but in body as well. Otherwise, a feeling of inadequacy experienced by almost everybody else in the room will very soon destroy the ambience and bond of brotherhood necessary for a pleasure of conversation, to be equally shared by all participants, inevitably bringing animosity and frustration into what was supposed to be an enjoyable pastime. 1073. The greatest mystery nowadays is not how one and only God can be personified by three distinct entities, or whether soul is immortal, and there is or there is not life after death, but what kind of criteria are used in the world when there are at least a dozen, and often several dozens, or even hundreds of applicants for every available job, to choose one particular person to reject all the rest? And what sort of exceptional qualities the chosen one possesses that everybody else is wanting? Or maybe just a mystery for those who didn't get the job. 1074. Why is it that for so many people the holidays, which are supposed to be the best time of the year, are in reality the worst? The answer is very simple. For while for those, arguably a minority, who have in general a fulfilling and satisfactory life all year around, the holiday represents the icing on the cake, something like a final touch to the already almost perfect picture. For the rest, whose everyday existence is by the relentless chain of drudgery and deprivation, the occasional holidays, especially if not personally planned but imposed by some organization regulations, only highlight and exacerbate the life all-pervasive misery, and instead of providing relief, only remind how one's life should be, but never will. It is like giving from time to time a candy to a starving child. For this rare moment of happiness changes nothing, and only underscores the permanency of hunger, making it so much clearer how truly terrible the rest of his life is. 1075. A husband who finally is capable to read the mind of his wife has achieved the highest degree of wisdom any man can aspire to. 1076. Reflecting on the enormous proliferation of books and pop psychology in recent years, I have come to a conclusion that their greatest literary achievement lies not in the supposedly beneficial effect they allegedly have on the personal life of their readers, but in the miraculous ability of the writer of such books to stretch a single and rather simple, even obvious thoughts, idea, or hypothesis in 200 or more pages. 1077. The most common conceit and one of the greatest delusions of many a great statesman is that unlike the ordinary run of men, they alone are capable of killing not just two, but many more birds with one stone. But since at any moment in history there is always more than one of these cunning schemers, and because they invariably tend to work at cross purpose, unfortunately for them and tragically for their subjects, since even in the freest democracy the majority are but the subject to those in power, the extra birds to get killed are most likely to be their own. 1078. The problem with the unanticipated and unpredictable questions is that one seems never to have the ready and satisfactory answer to them. But this is precisely the point, for how is it possible to have a ready answer to something unpredictable and therefore unusual?